Hello, we are here to teach you how to solve for horizontal motion and free fall motion. Problem number 1. Brake applied to a car produce a uniform retardation of 90 meters per second squared. If the car was traveling with a velocity of 27 meters per second, then what distance will it cover before coming to rest?
So, before we start with our problem solving, we first have to put our given. So for our initial velocity, we have 27 meters per second. Final velocity is 0 meters per second. Acceleration, 90 meters per second square. And our distance. And since we're looking for our distance, we have to look first for our time. So for time, we will use the equation final velocity minus initial velocity divided by a. Again, we have to put the values. So we would have 0 meters per second minus 27 meters per second divided by 90 meters per second squared. Because it says in the problem it's uniform retardation, that means that the value is decreasing. So we will have to put it as negative 90 meters per second squared. Now let's just have to solve everything. So negative 27 meters per second divided by negative 90 meters per second squared. Cancel out all the similar units. And then we would have 0.3 seconds. So for our time, we have 0.3 seconds. Now most of the values are there. We can finally solve for our distance. And for distance, we will use the equation initial velocity plus final velocity divided by 2 times time. And we simply have to put the values. Now, because our final velocity is 0, we just have to cancel it out. So we would have 27 meters per second divided by 2 times 0.3 seconds. So 27 meters per second divided by 2 is equivalent to 13.5 meters per second, and times 0.3 seconds. Cancel out the seconds because they're similar. So we would have 4.05 meters for our distance. And that is how we get our distance.
Problem number 2. Christine throws her mother's crystal vase vertically upwards with an initial velocity of 26.2 meters per second. Determine the height to which the vase will rise above its initial height.
Given would be VI equals to 26.2 meter per second, VF equals to 0 meter per second, acceleration would be negative 9.8 meter per second squared. We're going to find D. Our formula would be final velocity squared equals to initial velocity squared plus 2 times gravity and D. So we're going to put 0 meter per second squared equals to 26.2 meter per second squared plus 2 times negative 9.8 meter per second squared D. And then 0 meter per second squared would be 0 meter squared per second squared equals to 26.2 meter per second squared would be 686.44 meter squared per second squared plus 2 times negative 9.8 would give us negative 19.6 meter per second squared D. And then we're just going to put negative 19.6 meter per second squared here equals to 0 meter per meter squared per second squared minus 686.44 meter squared per second squared. We're just going to copy this. Equals to 0 minus negative 686.44 would give us negative 686.44. And then D, negative 686.44 meter squared per second squared divided by negative 19.6 meter per second squared. We're going to cancel the unit, so we will be left with M. So, negative 686.44 divided by negative 19.6 would give us 35.0 meters. Final answer.
Thank you for watching.